Well, I've walked by here several times, many times. With Doug standing right there at the door. I wondered who he was hiding in here. Now I know. And I'm delighted. It's nice to see all of you. Maybe get a little bit better acquainted in some ways. With a congregation as large as this one is, there's lots of folks, well, we know you when we see you, but we really don't know much about you. And that's kind of sad. I want to say something else right quick that is designed, I'm only saying it because I want to make you feel better. I don't want you to feel sorry for me because that's not the point of this. But I have a little hacky cough, and I've had it for 60-something years. And if I go, don't worry about it. I'm healthy. As far as I know, and I feel fine. But I have scar tissue on my vocal cords, and it's just caused a problem through all these years. And so sometimes I think I present myself unintentionally as I think he's getting sick. He's probably got it and doesn't know it yet. Nothing unusual is happening as far as I can tell. The way these lessons are presented to us, to present to you, there's enough for 3 Sundays, really and truly. And there's a bunch of it I would like to get covered that I probably won't. But let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 16. And if it's okay with you, I don't like it necessarily this way, but let me just read some scripture to you, and then we're going to talk about it. King David came to Bahurim. A man came out of the village cursing them. It was Shimei, and I'm an old man, and that's probably Shimei, but I'm so old that we pronounce it Shimei for so many years. It's hard for me to get it changed. So anyway, son of Gera from the same clan as Saul's family. He threw stones at the king and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors who surrounded him. Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel, he shouted at David. The Lord is paying you back for all the bloodshed in Saul's clan. You stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to you, to your son Absalom. At last, you will take some of your own medicine, for you are a murderer. Why should this big dog curse my lord the king? Abishai, son of Zeruiah, demanded. Let me go over and cut off his head. No, the king said. Who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah? If the Lord has told him to curse me, who are you to stop him? Then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord will see that I am being wrong and will bless me because of these curses today. So David and his men continued down the road, and Shimei kept pace with them on a nearby hillside, cursing and throwing stones and dirt at David. The king and all who were with him grew weary along the way, so they rested when they reached the Jordan River. And then that brings us, in the way this lesson is constructed, to 2 Samuel 19. So if you want to start over there, or move your phone up, or however you're doing that. Now then, there's a whole bunch in between here about Absalom and finally the death of Absalom and all of this that I think some of the saddest stuff in the Bible. When David laments over Absalom, that to me is heartbreaking because it's such a story of everything. What else could go wrong? And I always hate asking that question because you usually find out. But anyway, it's just, and if any of you enjoy music, the choral piece, Absalom, oh my son Absalom, is one of the most beautiful pieces of music that you could ever want to hear. It's sad. but it really plays on your emotions, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. I forgot who wrote it right this minute. I had somebody nod back there. Do you remember who wrote that? It's a wonderful piece of music, and it just brings the emotional effect of what David was feeling at that time to your heart as you listen to it. So anyway, now Absalom's dead and all of this business, and David's going back to Jerusalem to continue as king. And in verse 15 in 2 Samuel 19, so the king started back to Jerusalem, and when he arrived at the Jordan River, the people of Judah came to Gilgal to meet him and escort him across the river. Shimei, son of Gera, the man from Bahurim in Benjamin, hurried across with the men of Judah to welcome King David. 1,000 other men from the tribe of Benjamin were with him, including Ziba the priest, the chief servant, of the house of Saul, and Ziba's 15 sons and 20 servants. They rushed down to the Jordan to meet the king. They crossed the shallows of the Jordan to bring the king's household across the river, helping him in every way they could. As the king was about to cross the river, Shimei fell down before him. My lord the king, please forgive me, he pleaded. Forgive the terrible thing your servant did when you left Jerusalem. May the king put it out of his mind. I know how much I sinned. That is why I have come here today, the very first person in all Israel to greet my lord the king. Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, Shimei should die, for he cursed the Lord's anointed king. Who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah? David exclaimed. Why have you become my adversary today? This is not a day for execution, for today I am once again the king of Israel. Then turning to Shimei, David vowed, your life will be spared. Now then, if you are familiar, and I'm sure most of you or all of you are with this, and there's a little bit more to that. It's got a footnote about his life being spared. But anyway, and I thought, do we ever see anything like this in life today? I'm sure we see this attitude a lot. And I just got to thinking, well, Gary, when have you seen this? And I remember Beth and I, we go to Colorado every year, if at all possible, and we fish. We act like we really know what we're doing, but we're lucky if we catch a bunch of fish, and we're always thankful when we do. But one year we took a couple and their two sons. And we got out at a particular place that was rather scenic and so forth, and their little boy, I kind of got ahead of everybody, and their little boy was with me, and he picked up a rock. And I'm just ready to say, don't throw that rock. And I pour that rock in, and sure enough, hit this old man up there in his pocket. And I thought, well, now see there, you little nut, now look what you did. You know, that's what I was thinking, I didn't say it. And to my absolute chagrin, and I was just so embarrassed, the little boy standing there, and all of a sudden he goes, I ain't afraid of you, old man, I ain't afraid of you. And I thought, you know, it's a good thing you're not my kid, because I'd pick you up and beat the tar out of you, but you're not my kid. And your daddy doesn't see how you're acting, and your mama doesn't see how you're acting, so I guess you're going to get away with it. So that's a very childish thing. This was a very childish thing, in some ways of looking at it. Well, how many uses can you think of for vinegar and baking soda? I haven't really changed the subject, it just sounds like it. Have you ever put them together? As a science teacher, a few years ago, I figured out, well, you can do bottle rockets and fascinate a science class for a few minutes out on the playground and have a pretty good lesson about rockets and all that sort of thing. But you know, that mixture can be used for unclogging drains and washing clothes, although they say that vinegar is not real good for your washing machine, although I just mentioned that. You can wash your hair with it, and you can make a volcano for the science fair. Now, I think most of us here probably don't have kids doing the science fair, but if you do, they're tired of volcanoes, don't make it. But you put these two substances together and you got something explosive going on. And there are human relationships that also react like vinegar and baking soda. And the fallout from these usually are very messy and very destructive. And what tends to lead such people to these kinds of explosive reactions? Hey, I came in here expecting y'all to take this class. I'm going to finish stuff.
But you said you had 3 Sundays worth.
Stupid one. I'm sorry, the kids like that word. Well,
I mean, a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding. So, and I know a lot of times with us, those vinegar and baking soda moments are, a lot of times it's just that. Drink something. And then one of us may be prideful and didn't want to admit he's wrong.
yes, sir. And I wasn't necessarily asking for a confessional, but I appreciate the humility that says I'm not a perfect person, and I've had some of those moments because I think all of us have. We don't like to admit it, but I can think of one little explosion that I had with my wife, and if I start talking about it, I'll just fall. How stupid I was. How stupid. I'll use that one again. Well, anyway.
Well, I always, and I believe we always do what we believe is best at that moment in time. Now, sometimes it doesn't take very long to understand that was really a bad idea. But at the moment, we all do that. That's what we do. So I have to be understanding when others do things that I think are stupid. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else is going on in their life. I can't know. Yeah. The million things that I can't know are going to be a whole lot more than the very few things that I ever know could know. That should be more merciful and gracious.
But the Bible says things about kindness, doesn't it? God's for it. So we should be too.
And in Shimei's case, he felt like his child had been put down because of Saul. And now here is the very one who has been the instrument of that downfall of the child. And he's in trouble, and he's delighted to bring that to everybody's attention. He's not being gracious, but he's also being quite human.
This is not in my lesson material, and it just occurred to me that because of what you said, it made me think of the word gloat. I think there was some gloating going on here. I've always wanted you to get yours, and now you're getting. I'm just tickled to death. You can't imagine how thrilled I am that you're miserable. What a terrible attitude. And I think we see that, I hate to even bring it up, political world all the time. Just meanness. And the bad guy in our lesson today exploded really for all the wrong reasons. But David was the good guy and responded, I think, in the way that God wanted him to. And so today's lesson really concerns what we can learn from all of that. What do you think, or what do you know about what might have caused Shimei's outbursts against David?
David's life was no secret. It's not likely his affair and his murder was a secret. So David was guilty. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't really know why Shimei said all the things he did. We have a record of some, maybe perhaps some of the reasons. We really don't know.
Well, you remember that little note in there about, he talks about the bloodshed of the house of Saul. And Shimei is from that family. And you get to reading, there were a number of things that the Bible does not indicate at all that David had anything to do with them. Well, for instance, the death of Saul and Jonathan. It could be supposed that David in the background had something to do with that. Only, I mean, it was in battle. There were other family members later on who were killed. You know, kings in those days, when they came to power, they got rid of everybody that might challenge their ability to be king. And so it's easy to assume, and that's what it is in this instance, the assumption that David had something to do with several of these deaths, because there were so many of them in Saul's family. But actually, I personally think God maybe had a lot to do with some of it. God was clearing some things out. But I also, well, let's see, you know, we got goofy names in the Old Testament, and I got way too much. Oh, Ishbosheth's death. That was Saul's only surviving son. And it could be a deal. David, I think, got blamed for that. And 7 of Saul's descendants that the Gibeonites killed. You know, they maybe put them up. But then I think about here's another one of those names, Mephibosheth. Does anybody in this class ever remember Mephibosheth? Well, you smart people. Let me do. He was Saul's grandson, and he was the little crippled fellow. And he always had a place at David's table. David took care of him. So you see that, and remember how many times David would not let his men kill Saul, although they had the opportunity to do that with all of his craziness and going after David. There are so many things there that indicate that the attitude that Shimei had was wrong, and that he didn't really know. And to get to that misunderstanding that you're talking about, I thought about what you said. I always on one of my points. Much of this is a big misunderstanding. How easy is that? Well, it's terribly easy. You walk up, say something to me, and I can immediately assume all kinds of things. Unfortunately, sometimes I do. So, could we say that Shimei was in any way justified in what he was doing?
You know, David had a problem with doing anything inappropriate to the Lord's anointing.
Yeah.
We do know that. And so, if Shimei had any good reason for saying the things he said, it may have still been inappropriate to speak to the Lord's anointed that way.
Well, the indication from Abishai is that it was a capital offense, and I've forgotten where, right this minute I thought I was going to see it here in all these copious notes. because there is something said there in the Old Testament about speaking against the Lord's anointed, and it is forbidden. But I don't see that passage right this minute, and it's not one that I have in my memory. Well, and this paints a terrible picture of Shimei. I mean, just walking along to ridicule, make fun of, throw rocks at, throw dirt at, and this sort of thing. And my question here that I have, I think somewhat already been answered. You know, have you ever done something like this? My conjecture would be that none of us probably done anything like this in quite the strong fashion that it was done by Shimei. We may have seen people do that. Hopefully, we've kept ourselves better under control of that. And so, I have this question for you. Have you ever done something like this? And I just said, and you don't have to answer that. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. Pardon me. I have, and gotten close to it anyway. And do I regret it? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Well, how did David handle this cursing business? And why did he attribute that to God? What Shimei was doing? That kind of funny too.
I think Benjamin Franklin said to the guy who said to him, "You know what people are saying about you?" And he said, "Well, if they knew me better, they might not have such nice things to say about me." You know, David's guilt, David said, my sins are always, they're always before me. So David was guilty of something, and he knew he was. I don't know why he decided at this time not to have the man killed, but David was guilty of shedding too much blood, what God said.
Yeah, if we don't get to it, he did arrange for the man's death.
He did. But God told David, you're not going to get to build a temple. You shed way too much blood. You had too much blood on your hands. I don't mean to speak disparagingly of David, that's not my point. But David was guilty of some things, and it gives me hope that if I've done those kind of things to others, the Lord still forgives me, and the Lord still uses me for whatever purpose He's designed for me.
Now, God said to David after the business with Bathsheba that the sword was never going to leave his house, and that he would have problems from within his own family, which this is the manifestation of it with the business Absalom. He had plenty to feel guilty about. And a lot of that business with Saul, of course, goes back before that. You know, you kind of brought up something that I wanted to mention, and it has gone away. At my age, a lot of things flee. No, you said you didn't want to make a put down of David. That wasn't where you put it, but I guess since I thought it would come to me if I said that. But he was guilty of a number of things, and as you said, he said, "This sin is ever before me." He wanted to please God. He loved God, and was stricken with great great sorrow because of what he had done in his life. And I'm not exactly sure about some of this, exactly why, but I think we've aimed at it and done about as good as we can do. But this also tells us something about David's character and his relationship with God, and the things that you've mentioned, and what happened with Shimei's attitude and behavior when David returns. Do you think he really changed his mind about that? I don't know, the Bible doesn't say. And sometimes we tend to think the worst. And I wonder if he didn't come and say the things that he did to David and ask for forgiveness and all that business, just because, well, I blew it. I thought Absalom was going to come out on top of this deal, and now he hasn't. And boy, did I make a mess of things. Now, what am I going to do? I'm lucky I'm not already dead. And I don't think he knows just how lucky he is, because Abishai was ready to go over there and cut his head off. I don't remember now what I wanted to say. Can you imagine living in that day with all the bloodshed? I mean, if I hear about a Muslim or somebody beheading somebody, it just makes me cringe. I just can't imagine that. And here's Abishai. Just let me go across the little ravine here, and I'll just take his head off. And not any big deal. He shouldn't be doing what he's doing anyway. And but for David's attitude, it would have happened. Well, okay. Now then, I don't necessarily want, maybe he got some information that changed his attitude. You know, sometimes we learn something and we change our attitude because, okay, I know some things I didn't know the other day when I took my words and beat the daylights out of you. And I was excessively unkind to you. And I should have kept my mouth shut. No, my mouth just keeps going. Okay, I'm not very deep enough yet. I've got a few more things I want to say. I'm so good at that. I'm trying not to be good at it, but I don't want you to think that I know all these things about myself and I've never tried to correct it. There is no tolerance, as far as I can tell, in the Bible for our being unloving and being irritable people. But it is factually known psychologically, if you go through a bunch of psychology classes like I did, that it is heritable, that you can inherit a disposition that is irritable. I did that. I'm so easily irritated, and this has been a life's work to stop letting little things irritate you. You don't want to hear some things I've said to some people because they're driving.
You're one of those.
Two. I think you forgot to say two.
Oh, yeah.
At one time, I yelled loud enough, I think they heard me. Because they made a gesture at me, it wasn't very nice. You know, we need to overcome those things, and that's what the Lord wants to do. And if we don't get anything else out of this lesson, and I'm jealous of people. I try not to be improperly, there's two kinds of jealousy. You can be jealous of somebody in a loving way. And maybe that doesn't make sense to you. I'll talk to you later. But the kind of jealousy that is mean-spirited and all, no, that's wrong. But people who just have that sweet and sunny disposition. And I got thinking about Lehman Jones. That y'all probably don't any of you know her, but she's a beautiful Christian lady over at Littlefield, and I've known her for lots and lots of years. And she's just always got a smile on her face, and nothing seems to perturb her. And I'm just thinking jealous of that, because she just does it so easily. And her sister Judy as well. And actually there were 6 or 7 of those girls, and they were all just had that beautiful attitude and could smile when I were to smack somebody. And I wish I could be more like that. That I don't know if I've really budged much or not. I keep trying to, because there's a lot of things that back off and look at it. It wasn't that important to begin with. You're just a jerk. Well, anyway. So, well, how could, if you really have some hard feelings like that towards somebody, what's a better way to approach the situation?
It's helpful to go to them in private.
Yes, sir.
My experience is, when you do it in public, it never, ever turns out well.
Well, if you keep me from looking good.
Well, and I found that if I have an issue with somebody and it doesn't seem to be working out, there's been a lot of times I've prayed to God, change their heart, but until I pray, change my heart. Whenever that happens, then things do change.
And you start praying to that person.
Yes.
I mean, earnestly good things for them. Yeah. One last point that, and I can see what is going to happen, but this fellow that wrote this material got to talking at the end of this lesson about the reputation that Christians have between 16 and like 29-year-old people today, and our reputation among them is not good. They see us as hypocrites and hypocritical and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of it probably has to do with the way waiters and waitresses in restaurants that hate Sunday because of all those Christian people come in and they're rude. I used to work at the Ramada Inn in Abilene, Texas during lectureship, and they can sure be rude. And am I one of those people? There is a time to be assertive, but there's also a time to just be kind and realize that somebody's behind the 8 ball, they're doing the best they can, and you saying something unkind is really helping the situation at all. And yes, you do look like a hypocrite. I want to say jerk, that's really not a good word. You just look like a hypocrite because you're that loving Christian. Yeah, give me more of those. I don't think so. So we really need to be careful when we're out among the people, or if we have jobs. I go in people's homes, so if you don't know, I tune pianos. And every day of the week, lots of weeks, I'm in somebody's home. And some of them have children, bratty little children. Some of them have dogs that are so obnoxious. Well, how am I gonna handle that? I think there probably ought to be a scripture, maybe there is one, and I just don't understand it. It says, put off irritability and take on being sweet and loving and kind. And I am happy to say that most of the time, children really don't bother me. I love children. And if you don't know this, I did a couple of years of child counseling in the state of Texas. And what I lacked in loving children, I learned to love doing that. There's some of the kids that need so much love. And the words of Gary need to be finished because it's 4 minutes according to that clock. According to my clock, it's just 3, but anyhow. Anything, comments?